What's up, people? This is the Nature Girl 30 here, and this is an audio that I have not done in a long time. This is my another version of Knights of the Wrestling Ring. Instead of this time of having several people like we did last time in a panel, we actually have only one individual, and this is Mr. Griffin. He is pretty much known for doing a lot of response videos, but he actually does a lot of great wrestling videos as well as other great topical videos. Say hi to everyone, Irvin.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, this is strictly with the Nature Girl 30. This is strictly a wrestling video. Yeah, you won't. This is one of my more relaxed ones. You won't hear me too much on politics or race and other stuff that I usually discuss on my channel. This is strictly more of the fun wrestling video that I originally started out doing before I started moving into the more heavier topics. So, thank you for inviting me for this. And what's up on the plate, Nature Girl?
Well, pretty much what we're going to talk about today is four topics. Um, it doesn't have to be on that one order. We can just go with the flow.
Okay.
Um, we're going to talk about the WWE Network, especially of how it is now for since we both have it, how we personally think about it and our own personal views about the actual network. Then we're going to talk about the actual road to Survivor Series. How is being planned out so far, how is being built up at this point, our own personal views of this year's Survivor Series. Then we can talk about
Yeah.
TNA. TNA is pretty much on a lot of people's minds, especially those on wrestling fans, of whether or not they're going to make it through the year and they're going to find a way to extend to next year on a different channel. And the last thing that we can pretty much talk about is what's on a lot of people talk about in some of their videos is the wrestling business as a whole, especially in how the wrestling business has been for this year 2014. We got 2 more months to go and it's officially over. So we can talk about the wrestling business as a whole for 2014.
Oh, well, let's get right into it. Now, you said the WWE Network. That's kind of funny because as we're doing this video, I'm actually looking at the original, and this kind of ties into your other thing about Survivor Series. I'm looking at the original Survivor Series from 1987. I remember as a kid, months later, getting the official Coliseum video, which I'll give WWE props on this particular issue. I know there have been a lot of complaints about them editing stuff and not showing this or showing that. One thing I will give them, at least concerning Survivor Series 1987, they're showing the entire card. Unlike the Coliseum video version, which edited out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
This is actually showing the entire card. True, with the entrance of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I would have preferred to hear that version of I Can Read Your Mind by the Alan Parsons Project.
Mm-hmm.
I would have preferred to hear that music rather than the military march music they use for them. But hey, it happens. My overall enjoyment of the network, there are things on it I like the Monday Wars. Although I do agree that, especially the recent chapters, like the one on Goldberg, on Chris Jericho,
Well, I
and the
guess
Rock.
before,
Although the
sorry to
Rock, I
interrupt,
can.
but before you get into that, I guess just to try to make it a bit organized is to try to talk about the good points first and then talk about the bad, because I know we talked about the network in the
Sure.
last few days, so we can just talk about the pros first and then go into the cons just to try to keep it organized.
Okay. For the As far as the pros go, a lot of cards that I, as a kid, had to wait to get on video. The one of the bad WCW, even under the NWA, used to do this a lot too. They would edit out a lot of stuff or edit down matches, or sometimes even leave matches off. So when they create this network, one of the things that I was pleased with, for the most part, was a lot of these cards that were edited down when I was a kid now had the full matches. So in their entirety, including even matches that I didn't get to see. when I was a kid. Like I said, the Survivor Series that I'm looking at as I'm talking to you, a lot of parts in this couple of these matches were edited out, especially the big tag team survivors, like 5 tag teams on each side. And just, I don't want to get off topic, but that kind of shows the depth that WWE had at one time in their tag team division, where you
Yeah.
had enough teams, you could have a 5 team elimination match.
Yeah. I mean, I agree
Um,
with you there. Like, you actually have an opportunity to go back 20 years and actually see these matches begin. And we were just talking about, and I guess going from the actual matches, I'm going to go towards their original content and the documentaries that they had put out there. I will say that me being a huge fan of Ric Flair, it was a great treat for me to see the rivalry for WWE rivalries between Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Like, it was like at least 2 years before I got started watching wrestling, and I just came in when that feud was ending. So being able to see that at my age right now was a treat for me, and I will say that I got to tip their hat off for that, for them coming up with that and literally making people give you an idea on how wrestling was 20 years ago.
yes, and as I discussed with you in a private call once, I actually lived through that Rhodes Flair feud in the '80s. See, I started watching wrestling in 1985. Like a lot of fans, the guy that got you into it, Hogan. So I grew up on WWE, but then later, when World Championship Wrestling out of Atlanta got taken back over by Jim Crockett and NWA, I was like, "What is this wrestling?" And I was a little mad, but then I was like, "Wait a minute, this wrestling pretty good." And one of the things that was the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Of course, at the time, I didn't realize how far their feud went back. But when Flair turned on Rhodes like that, and the Andersons jumped him in the cage, I, like a lot of fans, was, I was a little kid back then, but I, like a lot of fans, was irate. But I was also fascinated that these people, even though I knew it was a little, it was a show, it wasn't really real. I was fascinated. These fans were ready to kill Flair and the Andersons. In fact, I mean, because you saw the documentary, they showed it.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah,
fans,
that was
if they could
nuts.
have got their hands on them, so the Andersons and Flair might have been going to the hospital themselves that
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, that was completely nuts. And it also gives you an idea on how the WWE universe, well, it really wasn't so much the WWE universe, more like the WWF fans, how they were back then when kayfabe was just out of control. Like kayfabe was at its peak around the 80s, and it kind of gave you an idea on how fans reacted towards everything around that time, which kind of makes you appreciate kayfabe being gone now.
Yeah, because though I mean they were ready to kill him. So I lived through that Flair Rhodes feud, and then when months later, when Duck finally beat Flair at the Great American Bash, I used to watch that match over and over again. This was back in the day when world title matches used to go average, even in the WWE. This includes Hogan era or Warrior era. Most big world title matches win at least 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes longer, depending on who the performers were. So, today that would be considered real boring. But back then, there was a storytelling aspect. You start off slow, and then you build as the match went on,
Yeah, I
for
mean,
however long it took.
yeah, it's like for that time, it kind of gave you an idea. Like the network itself gives you an idea on how it was from the 1980s on down to now. It does give you that opportunity. The original content, I will say that I have to tip my hat off to it. Even though they took from a lot of reality shows, including The Surreal Life, I have to say that Legends House will always be one of my favorites because I grew up watching these guys on the air. Like as a kid, I grew up watching. Of course, everybody grew up watching Roddy Piper. There's not a person that don't know who Piper is. then you got what? Who else was on there?
Oh yeah, cause
Yeah, Tony Atlas. I wasn't. I don't think I was born when Tony Atlas was wrestling, and even when Tony Atlas just retired, maybe when I was 3, so I didn't have a chance to see him wrestle. But most of everybody there, it gives you kind of a sense of nostalgia. Plus, it kind of shows you what those men went through during those times, and especially that everybody
oh
was.
yeah,
I mean, especially they were talking about how somebody came out
yeah.
on
Go
there.
ahead.
I mean, it's like it was a really amazing show. It showed you how much these people have gone through what they've gone through. It showed them how they became real men. It was a real great show. And also, I'm a sucker for countdowns, so that's why I love WWE Countdown. That's like one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
That and Legends House. It was great, and I'm not gonna hate on that. They have
So in
really
other
great original
words,
content.
it sounded like he was a big fan of the round tables they used to have.
Yeah, I was.
I forgot the name, what they were but yeah, I used to watch them too, and they were very interesting to hear these men's stories. I wish they still did them because sometimes I'd rather watch that than the actual product on Raw
Yeah. But
because I had this nostalgia, and a lot of these guys, the stuff they're talking about, I either lived through it or just heard of it.
yeah. And I agree with you. I would really love to actually hear these guys talk wrestling stories around a table and just or dinner or whatever, and just talk about what they did and the highlight of their career. Maybe not all the time, because I'm not gonna lie, it probably will get old. But just have like a special moment for an anniversary or whatever of the actual brand, and have these guys come in, these legends come in and talk about their careers, not only from the past but also from the present. Like, I would love to hear Jericho talk to Piper about what he did in his like what Piper did in his heyday, what Jericho did in his heyday. I would love to see Booker T talking to Tony Atlas back and forth. That would really be an interesting story, but that's just something that should be for a special event. But I guess now that we pretty much got the pros out the way, let's talk about the cons, because I know we're itching to talk about the cons, because there are a few of them. Well, a few big ones, in
Yes,
other
quite a
words.
few. Yeah, but before we get into that, one other historic thing I talk about. I'm looking at the Survivor Series right now from 1987. Talk about how big their tag team depth was. That they had enough tag teams to do their own Survivor Series type match.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, just looking at a layman, imagine getting caught in the wrong corner in that match. Yeah, but this is another. But this is another thing I want to refer to too. Back then, they even had the women their own Survivor Series tag match, which you rarely saw. Even in the Attitude Era, you rarely saw that. And this is when women's wrestling actually mattered between 2002, between 2000 and I would have to say 2006, when women's wrestling in both companies of WWE and TNA mattered. But yeah, I remember, for the first time watching the Jumping Bomb Angels in their elimination match. I mean, these two, everybody was talking about them. I mean, nobody, as far as the women's match, nobody was really talking about anybody else but those two, because they was almost like the Japanese version of lucha libre in a way.
Well,
And they were incredible. I mean, it's a shame they didn't become bigger in the United States than they did, because they were incredible.
well, I don't know about the WWF or WWE around like 2007. I don't know about all that, but I do know that maybe in the around the mid 2000s is when
Yeah, but
TNA's knockouts division was at its peak. I will say that, but I don't know about WWF. After looking back at it, it was more ridiculous and sexist by the second,
yeah,
as time
I
went
mean, there
on.
are some from the '80s, and this is when they didn't really put that much premium on women's wrestling. But there are a few from the '80s that I do wish sometimes I wish I had a time machine and could have put them like in the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression Era. Like I said, I don't. Have you ever seen the Jumping Bomb Angels from Japan?
No, I haven't, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were awesome.
Look up Survivor Series 1987, and in the women's elimination Survivor match, just watch it just for them. Oh, Nature Girl, they were incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame. A shame that they didn't blow up bigger than they did in the U.S. It's a shame because those two were incredible.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they
I
were.
enjoyed watching them. Sometimes I enjoyed watching them more than I did some of the men.
Well,
Not just because they was female, they were actually great performers. Those two could have took on and a female tag match could have. I would have put them against anybody, even women from the Attitude Era. I would have put them against, and they probably would have did very well.
well, that I won't deny. But let's move on to the cons because I'm kind of sort of itching to
Yeah,
talk about
yeah. I don't
Survivor
want to get too
Series.
far off topic.
Yeah, I'm kind of itching to talk about Survivor Series because of the last conversation that we had. But let's talk about some of the cons that we have for the network. Now, I'm gonna go back into the documentaries because the one that kind of pissed me off the most was Goldberg. Now, I'm not saying that everything in that documentary was not true. Most of it was true. The only problem that I have with some of these documentaries, including the one that I just talked about with Flair and Rose, the rivalries, is that somehow WWE puts in their 2 cents and it feels like they're more gloating. It seems like they're more gloating in a way, like, we won the war and we're going to continue to win. I'm like, we know that you won. We know that you beat every single company out there. Don't gloat. We just want to see about these two people that you're referring to. I wanted them to talk about Goldberg's after Goldberg left WCW. I wanted to see how I wanted them to talk about the run that he had with WWF. I also wanted them to talk about, and during rivalries, I wanted them to talk about Ric Flair and Cody Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and the legacy that they put on their kids, to see Cody Rhodes and Dustin out there performing, and also talk about Charlotte, and that'll be a huge pop for NXT. I wanted them to talk about them instead of them gloating that they were beating everybody down. We get it. Your company became a juggernaut. Can you stay out of it and insert the people that you're talking about in it and keep your 2 cents out? That's all I'm saying.
I enjoyed them regardless, but let me say this. Your argument is valid because if it would have been me writing it, I would have left it exactly the way I'll start with the Rhodes Flair one. I would have left it exactly the way they did, except it would have been a little more than an hour because I would have actually talked about what happened after the big Rhodes Flair feud, and when it ended in '86. I would have talked briefly about where their careers went after that. And yes, I would have even talked about their brief revisiting of the feud in 2001 during the days of WCW, when they had their feud with Dusty and Dustin Rhodes versus Flair and Jeff Jarrett. I would have talked about that, and I would have talked about the children, the impact it's left. I would have talked briefly about Dustin Rhodes. I mean, I would have even included, or they could even go do it. I'd be interested in a separate thing, like maybe a bonus chapter, not necessarily a part 2, but a bonus chapter talking about the children. Even talk about David Flair. Talk about Reed, who unfortunately passed away due to drugs. Talk about Charlotte, which that would be a small nod to NXT.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you got to talk about Cody Rhodes and Goldust.
Oh yeah.
You have to talk about
and how they are currently, and not only that, you can talk about how the legacy is extended with Cody, because Cody just got married to Eden, and they can have Eden talk about it, and Eden's actually wrestling, and see how it's going to be in their family and how the legacy will continue. Instead of making it like talking about the rivalry, once the rivalry ended, they can go into the legacy part.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much how I see it, and that's That's my only problem is they always insert their 2 cents and talking about how they beaten everybody. The Monday Night Wars, I understand. There's a reason that
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
There's a reason for that, and I can let that go. But when it comes to rivalries, it's something back in the day before the WWF even became the juggernaut that it is now.
Yeah.
Why bring that up? Like, it's no point.
Austin McMahon is one thing.
Yeah.
Because they did the Rob 2 on that one. Austin and McMahon is one thing. I mean, I can understand that one because that one pretty much saved WWE.
Yeah.
That rivalry pretty much saved WWE. I mean, there were several things that saved WWE during the Monday Night Wars, but that was one of the big ones. I can understand that one being slanted, but Rhodes Flair, even though I enjoyed what they did with it, I do agree if it was me, I would have left it the way it was, except I would have changed. I would have not had as much of a WWE slant. The only time WWE would have been really mentioned is talking about briefly Rhodes and Flair's runs in WWE. That would have been the only mention of WWE in there.
Yeah, that
would have been the only mention.
That's pretty much. I mean, I pretty much feel completely. I agree with you when it comes to that, and that should be the only time it should be mentioned when it's talking about the Monday Night Wars. But it's not really a meaning to mention it at that point when it comes to the rivalry between Flair and Rhodes. It was just unnecessary. But now that we pretty much touched on that, why don't we move on to what we really want to talk about, Survivor Series. Now, I don't know if you watch SmackDown. I don't watch it anymore, but I do watch Raw, and I do live tweet Raw, and I'm going to go by what I saw on Raw. Now, we've had conversations about this many times, and the last one pretty much got pretty heated. Not any issues between us, but the fact is this is something that you and I kind of agree on. And you brought this up of how we both feel that the Authority has more to lose than Cena. Now, it's no beef.
Exactly.
It's no beef at all. For those that are listening who are Cena marks, we are not in any way, shape, or form. Even though, yes, that Mr. Griffin is a certified Cena hater, he's not talking about how much he hates Cena. He's making a point, as well as for me. We are not hating John Cena. We are just stating a point, a fact in your face, that John Cena has less to lose than the Authority. He has zero, zilch, nada to lose for Survivor Series. The whole purpose of Survivor Series is to have something on the line, to survive. John Cena has nothing to give up, which is something that Mr. Griffin has mentioned that makes sense. Why doesn't John Cena have a stipulation? And I already told you what I believe my stipulation would be. And you know, and it sounds pretty harsh, but they did the same thing to Sting. That, honestly, and I'm hoping that they do this. I'm hoping that they do it.
The last great Survivor Series matches, as far as the traditional 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, as far as the traditional, the last great ones, in my opinion, were in 2003 when you had Team Angle versus Team Lesnar.
Yeah, I remember that.
Who everybody was in those matches at the.
I remember that.
When they had Team Austin versus Team Bischoff.
Oh yeah, I remember that too.
Michaels had that great ending where he almost won the match single-handedly
after
being bloodied and after being down 3-1 and only lost because Batista came in and powerbombed him to hell.
Yeah.
And in that one, it was if Bischoff lost, Austin could do whatever he wants. But if Austin's team lost, Austin was gone. Granted, Austin ended up coming back later anyway, but both sides had something to lose.
Exactly. And that's what makes a really great Survivor Series. That's what makes a great build towards Survivor Series. You start off way early and you make it a build. You make it to where both people have more to lose. And unfortunately, the Authority has more to lose than Cena. Now, I've already told you what I believe my stipulation would be, and I'm hoping that they actually do pull this out because it would be great on both ends. I believe that they should pull a Sting. that John Cena should not be allowed to go to actually have a championship. He cannot be a number one contender for the WWE Championship for 1 year. That excludes him from Money in the Bank, and that also excludes him from being in the Royal Rumble. That for 1 year after WrestleMania 31, he can do whatever he wants. But after that, he cannot have a WWE Championship title run or even a number one contendership for 1 year. I think they should really pull that out, and I'm hoping that they do, because it will make it interesting. Not to mention, it will actually have John Cena feel like he has more to lose than anything else, and you'll probably see a lot more coming out of him in that match.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I even made a comedy rant promo yesterday.
Oh no, I've heard your comedy
Yes.
rant promos.
Yeah, from John Cena to Hoda and Kathy Lee to Robert Thicke to the whole street harassment. But like I said, I'm gonna keep it wrestling here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to, and I even said, and this is a PG show. That was a PG. WWE, as we know, is a PG show these days. So there's no way I could have actually said this unless they decided to bleep it out. But I would have been like, in other words, John Cena, your team wins, the authority is gone. But if you lose, your chances at WWE Championship for 1 year, I got 2 words for you. Bye, bitch.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I knew you were gonna say that because you said that yesterday. But
yeah, that would have been my attitude. Oh yes. Oh no. That'd be one thing. If I could say something to John Cena, even in a work shoot, I'd be like, okay, you better tell me right now, what can I say to this guy and what's off limits? Because if you just let me say whatever, I will rip this guy to shreds.
oh gosh.
Oh yes, but seriously though, but I mean, and the Lex Man even made reference to this. Why is the authority the only ones with something on the line and not Cena? And plus, if you really think about it, it would be. I'm surprised nobody has implied that Cena is in cahoots with the authority, because if you think about it, since the authority has been in existence, they have never really tried to impede Cena. Not really. Starting with 2015 with after the John Cena Daniel Bryan, everybody that has gone against the authority. Daniel Bryan, he had roadblocks. Big Show, he had roadblocks. Dean Ambrose had roadblocks. CM Punk, before he quit, had roadblocks. The Shield had roadblocks before Seth Rollins turned heel. I mean, they all had roadblocks. Except for John Cena. Whenever John Cena won a title match, he got it. Even though they publicly said champion, yet every time he won a title match or there was a number one contendership or title match, he always won. They did very little to nothing to stop him.
That is true. That is true.
As a logical person, I would be thinking something's up.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really so much the fact that he has not, like I guess that's my biggest thing. For me, it's all about Survivor Series. It's all about the decent build for one of the big 4 pay-per-views. This is the big 4 pay-per-view before the road to WrestleMania, which is the Royal Rumble. That's pretty much where people say it begins there. In my opinion, it begins Survivor Series. This is where it's supposed to be good. This is where all the rivalries are supposed to come together, and some of them extended out, headed towards WrestleMania, and the other ones get capped. But either or, when it comes to the team matches, you want it to have a decent build enough for people to actually care. Because you know they're going to have this on the main event. It has the freaking authority in it. You know this is going to probably be a main event. This just might be the main event. And if that's the case, then they need to have a decent build. The biggest gripe that I have about this team matches John Cena wasn't even there for the first Raw. Like for the first Raw that this started to begin, John Cena wasn't even there promoting people. He was there the night before and got Ziggler, but he got nobody else. We end up finding out that he got 2 other folk behind the scenes. And I guess the only way to find out is through the WWE app for $9.99. Which is also another big thing that we should have talked about for the network, how they shamelessly plugging and promoting their network, which is getting on my last freaking nerve. But regardless of that, with all this exclusive footage that they're having on the network, half of the people that don't watch the network daily, including myself, especially the backstage teams on Raw, will not know these things. So for those that actually do not watch it all the time, they should have had it on Raw the entirety throughout all the way through if they actually did do it, and then have the behind the scenes thing on the end before it caps off. But it's like John Cena wasn't even there that Monday to recruit people. We end up finding out when he got back that he got 2 folk, which makes no sense. And it's been a very lackluster build for this team match. But John Cena's doing his best to have people rally behind him. But how can you rally behind somebody that was not there for the first 48 hours?
Yeah, and plus, people are not going to, I don't care how you build this with Cena versus nobody is going to cheer for John Cena. If anybody, they're going to cheer for all the other team members. If anybody, especially Ziggler.
Now, I know you are a certified Cena hater. We know, Mr. Griffin, and you're a certified Cena hater. But I'm starting to see a bit of a turnaround. And I guess maybe they probably doctored it. I don't know. They have a tendency to doctor the audience after it's been pre-recorded. But I'm noticing that it's more half and half. It's not even half and half anymore. We got folks that are starting to cheer for Cena. We got the usual naysayers that boo him. But it's starting to become a lot more clear that people starting to root for Cena. Like, it's kind of a fickle bunch. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm noticing that there are a lot more kids than there are a lot more kids as well as women and some males that are cheering for Cena. I'm not saying it's a huge jump, but I don't know.
No, it's not. It's not a huge jump, and I don't think it's doctored. I don't think it's doctored. It also depends on who Cena is facing, too.
Yeah, that is true.
Like, even during his most hated times, it depends. Like, for example, when John Cena would face most anyone else during his most hated times, he would get booed. Now, if he was facing somebody like JBL, he would actually get some very noticeable cheers.
Okay, that is true. That is true.
I do admit that it depends on who he's facing. If he's facing somebody like JBL, oh yeah, he's going to get some cheers than normal because people hate JBL more than they do him.
That's true, but let's not stick this whole conversation to Cena.
Yeah, I know.
But let's talk about the card itself. Do you really believe that this team match is actually
the only other match that I can name right off is AJ Lee versus I almost said Brie Bella, Nikki Bella.
Oh gosh, really?
And in my opinion, even though I wouldn't put it past them, to have AJ Lee retain, in my opinion, Nikki should go over here. And I'm not a huge Bella Twin fan, but Nikki, let's face it, and I'm talking about both physically and in terms of momentum, Nikki is the hottest diva right now.
Yeah.
And I think she should go over at Survivor Series.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with you there when it comes to Nikki's popularity. Nikki is starting to become a lot more popular than Brie. That's starting to become a given. Nikki's starting to be thrown into a lot of matches, especially championship matches. I doubt she's going to win any of them, but I will say that she has improved a great deal in the ring. Having her AJ Lee versus Nikki Bella should be interesting, but then let's be real, it's going to end quickly because nobody can break the Black Widow, and the only person that can break the Black Widow is Paige. She's the only chick that can. Nobody else can. She's gonna tap out. It's gonna be a 2-minute match. I'm gonna say that right now. I'm calling it 2 minutes.
That's currently there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a 2 freaking minute match.
Currently there.
It's gonna be absolutely ridiculous. It's going to be a 2-minute match.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna last that long.
Nobody that's currently there can break the Black Widow except for Paige.
Yeah.
The reason I say currently there, there's only been one other woman that's broken it, and that's Caitlyn. But she's gone.
Yeah. But I guess the biggest question that I have is, do you believe that this team match is going to eclipse the other matches?
To an extent, only because of who's in it, but as far as match quality, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Like I said, you're talking to somebody that used to watch Survivor Series matches that I would watch all of them. Like I said, I'm looking at the original one right now as I'm talking to you, and we're up to the 5-on-5 tag team, where you had 5 tag teams on each side. So basically you had 20 guys involved in the match.
Yeah.
All those matches had something for everyone. And I haven't seen real good Survivor Series type matches since those days, honestly.
Yeah, I will admit.
But
yeah,
as far as whether that one will eclipse, it will only eclipse it because of who's in it.
That's true, but can you really say who's even on the card? Like, can you honestly remember?
That's the thing. They have not really built up Survivor Series. The only other match I can think of besides the women's match is Bray Wyatt versus Dean Ambrose. That's it.
Yeah.
I would have to look up the card just to tell you.
Because on the real,
back in the day,
that's the only match that I'm actually looking forward to. Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt. I could care less about anything else, which is sad. You want your entire card to be watched.
You know what? You know what this match kind of reminds me of? If they would have had back in the day a real built-up feud between Roddy Piper or Brian Pillman versus The Undertaker. Because Dean Ambrose, he's his own character, but that's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of a combo of Roddy Piper, Brian Pillman, and a little bit of Terry Funk. And the Bray Wyatt character, he's almost, even back when he had the Wyatt family, he reminded me a little bit of Jake the Snake, Mick Foley as Cactus Jack,
yeah,
and a little bit of The Undertaker in that little mysterious mystique.
Yeah, I will agree with you there to a certain extent that, yeah, he has that a bit. But in terms of Survivor Series, the fact is that there's only 2 matches on the card that people can actually remember and care about. That's the team match, and then that's Dean Ambrose versus Bray Wyatt. That's something wrong. This is one of your big 4 pay-per-views. You want to make every match that you put on the card memorable, not a waste of time. You're asking people for $10 of their money to watch your network for your pay-per-views, and you want to make them good. They may be $10, for crying out loud. That's people's hard-earned money. You want to give them what they pay for, especially for those that don't have the network and they pay $60 for the darn thing.
And going back to the network, people wonder why it hasn't sold as well. Because first of all, the overall product that they're currently putting on has left so much of a bad mouth. A lot of people don't want to part with their hard-earned money, even if it is a chance to see the pay-per-views on there and go back and watch old pay-per-views. Number one, and number two, like you referred to, or like I referred to earlier, they even on their own pay-per-views, they've edited so much crap that I'm thinking to myself, when they originally advertised that the pay-per-views would be on there unedited, which we found that out to be a lie, because a lot of these shows, even just the music on some of them is edited. Like, for example, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, when he would come down, they playing that like march military music, almost sounding like Dean Malenko's old music from WCW. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, you guys tell me y'all so stingy that y'all can't pay royalties to Alan Parsons' project, I Can Read Your... Because that's what it was. It was a version of I Can Read Your Mind. And it fit Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to a T. No other music to me fits, and I'm getting off topic, I know, but no other music to me really fits Ricky the Dragon Steamboat like that theme did.
And I guess before we go even further off topic, but now that you brought it up, I'm gonna have to go off topic as well. The one thing that really did bother me the most was, and you know, I went to WrestleMania 27, the WrestleMania that will live in infamy because nobody likes it and they say it's a complete piece of crap. I will disagree with them because it had one of the best streak matches
Except
I've ever
for one
witnessed.
match.
Yes, except for one match. Duh. Yeah, we know. But but the one thing that kind of pissed me off was the fact that they didn't have Johnny Cash on there for the Undertaker's entrance. Ain't no grave.
Which, ain't no grave, and you and I have debated this one.
Yeah, that we have.
You and I have disagreed on this one. Me, it's not a big deal because I always hated it. But at the same time, I understand your point on it too. Because this was the one of the few times you really thought The Undertaker was going to lose the streak.
Yeah.
When he was playing stuff like that. And I know you've argued that he should have lost.
Yeah. He should. I would have been fine.
And I'll be honest.
I would have been fine if he lost to WrestleMania 27. But, I mean, I would have been okay, peachy, hunky-dory, and dandy if he lost to WrestleMania 27. I would have been straight. But the thing is that, and I know we're like taking off Survivor Series and going back to the network, is that they should have stuck it to the way it was. Like, they had plenty of money to pay the royalties, to pay the Cash family for using the Johnny Cash's song. But the thing is that they should have stuck it for the way it was instead of trying to doctor it and change it. Especially in the end. John Cena had more hate. John Cena had more hate in that town than any other place he's been to. He had tons of hate that night. Even kids booed him. They changed the entire thing to cheers. And I'm like, really? Really? Y'all gonna do that? But anyway, we're getting way off topic here. All right, let's go back to Survivor Series and let's talk about the overall build.
Before we get back on topic, let me say this on The Undertaker and the streak. I'll be honest, going into that particular WrestleMania, I did not want Triple H beating The Undertaker. But after watching WrestleMania 27, I thought to myself, I'm glad The Undertaker won, but at the same time, if he would have lost that night, I would have been okay with it. Because, quite honestly, the game Triple H beat the hell out of him.
Yeah, that's the one thing I definitely do agree with. I really do agree with right there. But let's try to stick back on topic when it comes to...
Yeah, no, let's go back to Survivor
Series. Survivor Series. Now, let's talk about the overall build of the pay-per-view. Being the current build that it is, with the two matches that we know about, do you believe that it's worthy, that this pay-per-view is good enough for you to watch it to watch on the network for $10? Do you think that you should actually invest money to watch this pay-per-view after the build you got?
The build to it has sucked. The only build they've really put behind it is Team Cena versus Team Authority, and somewhat with the Divas match and the Bray Wyatt Dean Ambrose. Everything else is basically been almost no build, but even the build for those has been lacking. Quite honestly, the build. I'm sorry. I will probably not stay up to watch this. I will probably watch it later. Like that week, if I feel like it, I'll probably just watch it later, on replay.
Yeah.
Which is one of the benefits of having the pay-per-views on the WWE Network, because if it's a bad show, you can skip it. Or if you just skipped it when it originally aired, but it turns out to be a good show, you're at least not shelling out $50, $60. You already got the network, so you're watching it there.
Yeah.
And for me, it's definitely a money saver, especially around Royal Rumble and WrestleMania time.
Oh my gosh, does it save money? Seriously. But it
Yeah, for me,
but
it's a money saver. So,
but for me
because
personally,
I'll be honest, half of my TV viewing is stuff like the WWE Network, YouTube, Netflix, and Hulu Plus, and Voot and Voodoo.com. Although Voodoo, that's just movies and stuff, and you get like pay for those individually, but still, you get to keep them though. Unlike a pay-per-view service, you get to keep them. Voodoo, I guess you could say, is similar to Amazon streaming service.